think most of you, if not all of you, know who I am. Otherwise, I'm not sure why you'd be hanging out with me randomly on a Thursday night. But in case you don't know who I am, let's start here. Hello, my name is Tina. I'm Tina Van Steenbergen, and in my normal life, I'm a full-time professional public speaker. I own my own business. I travel the country, and I hang out with women. I spend a lot of time with sorority women. I have become a sorority expert, a sisterhood and recruitment expert. So I spend a lot of time in the sorority space, and it brings me great joy. I'm also a sorority woman myself. I'm a member of Alpha Gamma Delta. I know we have some Alpha Gams in the house. So hi, sister squirrels. So lovely to see you. Not see you, but see you. Joining my sorority changed everything about my world. Like, genuinely shifted everything about my experience in life and my experience with other women, which is why I'm so passionate about it and friendship with other women. So lots of my life's purpose comes back to sorority for me. And so I love to spend time with y'all. On a personal note, I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I grew up here, I went to college here, and then have been away for a long time. My husband and I just moved back here last year. Speaking of my husband, he's the human I live with. He's also my favorite human on earth, and I'm pretty sure the world's most attractive man. Yeah, he's dreamy. I'm not wrong about that. You can peep him on my Instagram, which I will give you right here because I think everybody should get a look at his dreamy face. I love him. He's also a professional public speaker. He also does free sessions like this all the time. He also just launched a podcast yesterday, which is so dope. And if you are a podcaster, totally worth your time. You can find all that information on my Instagram account or his. We have a little dog. Her name is Sherry. She's about 5 feet away from me looking at me. But we'll be asleep soon. Yes, her name is Sherry. So that's a fun tidbit. And I don't know if many of you know this or not yet, but we're also expecting a tiny human. I am pregnant and we're due in January and we're having a little baby. So that's really exciting. The whole world is changing over here. You know, we just really didn't think there was enough going on in 2020. So we were like, screw it. Let's make 2020 more weird. So we bought a house and are having a baby. Let's see what happens. I love macaroni and cheese. Still my favorite food. I love bourbon, which does not mix well with pregnancy. So I miss bourbon, but I believe that we will be friends again someday. And the snow is still my favorite thing on earth, except for my job, which is really my favorite thing. Mac and cheese is the best. Like an ooey gooey mac and cheese with some crunch. I can't. It's delicious. So that's me in the world. And even though my job looks completely ass backwards different than it did 8 months. How long have we been in this pandemic? Since March. So 7 months ago. It's still my favorite thing to do. And I spent a lot of time this fall in the recruitment space, trying to make sure that we could figure out how to add women to our chapters in meaningful, authentic ways, even though there were all of a sudden these enormous obstacles to doing what it is that we do during Panhellenic recruitment. But also for our non-Panhellenic sisters, growth in general. Like, how can we meet new women? How can we get to know them well enough to determine if we think that they're a good fit for our organization, if they align with our values and believe what we believe? So I spent a lot of time in the recruitment space this fall. It was fun and healthy. And I think we learned a lot about what sorority women can do when their backs are up against the ropes. We came up with some, like, you all were able to create incredible recruitment experiences for PNMs. And if you enjoyed recruitment / are a new member here and enjoyed going through the process, toss your secrets in the chat, because there are also some women here that are going to do recruitment in the spring virtually. And so I'm sure they're looking for your tidbits. But as much as I love recruitment, as much as I feel purposeful helping in recruitment, I knew that right around September, we'd have to shift and start to have conversations about sisterhood, start to have conversations about retention, because everything about our life is different, down to the way you take class and you buy groceries and you advise your chapter and you recruit new members, which means Sisterhood is also different. It's different. And we now are experiencing some barriers to sisterhood that I think COVID and a global pandemic have built between us and the sisterhood that we knew before, that are getting in the way, that are complicating some things and making it challenging to do sisterhood in the way that we remember, and to keep those feelings, those warm fuzzies, those powerful motivators, which is what sisterhood is. It's a powerful motivator to keep it alive. So that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. And like I said, I have some things here that I want to share with you, but I also want to help you. So please tell some things in the Q&A if I can help you. But I also don't want to just talk at you, even though I can't see you. I am going to ask you to engage with me a little bit. So in the chat, here's my first question for you. Let's pause on the sisterhood for a second, just like in life in general. How you doing? And you know this about me, if you really are doing like a 10 out of 10, the best, like you're vibing, thriving, living life, great. I'll take that answer. But you know I want the real answer. Like I genuinely want to know how you're doing right now. So if the answer is stressed, overwhelmed, exhausted, sad, mad, whatever, I want the real shit. So how are you doing? How are you feeling in life right now? And this is not just for the college students. I know we have a lot of advisors here and a lot of volunteers here. I want you to participate too. How are we doing? You keep typing. I'm going to read. Chloe loves mac and cheese and snow. Chloe, you and I meant to be. Also, y'all, before I forget, a lot of you have your chat set to send only to panelists, which is just me. So I want you to go switch your chat to send to panelists and attendees, because then everybody will be able to see what you're writing. So go make that shift. Okay, we're all right. We're struggling because the election is coming up. Retweet. Struggling through virtual nursing lectures. That's no joke. Overwhelmed, undermotivated, adapting to a new normal, stressed, tired, not great, anxious about being at college and COVID cases still rising. That's no joke. Currently in quarantine and missing out on things like internship opportunities. That's no joke. Overwhelmed with school, leadership, internships, jobs, all of the things. Need to find a new job, but too overwhelmed. Stressed, staying positive. Good for you. Slightly stressed. Sick and stressed, exhausted, stressed, struggling, stressing. Excited my son arrived. That's good. Exhausted and overwhelmed. Going day by day. Retweet. Tired. Taking a nap. Aggressive exhale might be my new favorite response to this question. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Oh my gosh, having little kids during this while you have to like become teachers for little children. Y'all, I can't even remember doing that. That's crazy. Give myself a C- right now. Burnt out, struggling, exhausted. Having COVID is not fun. I don't know that, but I believe that to be true. So thank you for saying that. Worried, hanging in there, stressed. So first of all, thank you for being real with me. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I feel like Groundhog's Day a little bit. And for those of you who've seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. Like it's just repeat the same thing every day. And I feel like I've said this a million times already, but like this shit is bananas. It's insane. Of course we're not okay. Nobody's okay. The next time you ask somebody like, how are you? And they're like, fine, lies. Liza Minnelli, lies. There's no way you're fine. The world is a mess. And if you have found a way to be fine in this mess, good for you. Please keep doing it and tell us your secrets. But also I think it's okay to pause and not be fine. Because I think somebody just said something like this in the chat. You remember when we thought this was just gonna be a couple of months? Like, fine, we'll deal with the spring semester being canceled so that we can have our summer back and so we can get back to campus in the fall. And then right around mid-July, we learned that America can't get its shit together. So we are not having a normal fall. So we had to go through this like grieving process all over again. And then, I don't know about y'all, but I was so focused on preparing for the beginning of the school year then I don't know that my brain was capable of planning for the rest of the school year in these circumstances. Everything has felt temporary, and yet the temporary is not over. So I say that to say it's okay to not be okay. It's also okay to be doing great. Some of us have found peace in quarantine or found some goodness in it, and that's okay too. I just wanted to pause and acknowledge that a lot going on in the world, and it's okay to be wherever you are. Wherever you are is the right place to be. And now I want to transition those feelings of how you're doing in life to sisterhood and sorority. So how are you feeling about your sisterhood right now? That's what I want you to answer in the chat. How do you feel about your sisterhood right now? Is it your bright spot in the rest of this mess? Are you feeling loved and supported? Are you feeling isolated and disconnected, unmotivated, struggling? How's your sisterhood doing in all of this? Okay, you keep typing, I'm reading. Wear a mask. I should just randomly start saying that in the middle of sentences during speeches. I feel bad. I feel disconnected. Sisters are divided because of the election. Woof. Somebody please put a question in the Q&A about the election, because it is going to have an impact on your sisterhood, and we have to talk about it. So somebody please remind me to come back to that. Struggling with mental health, discouraged, lots of tension. Trying to create events, but it's really difficult. I feel like no one's trying to make sisterhood work. That's valid. And then somebody says, sisterhood is my saving grace. I love that. Feeling like an outsider. Could be stronger, but it's not bad. Trying to keep it as a bright spot, but I'm feeling burnt out, worried, anxious, struggling and disconnected, missing my sisters. It feels weaker right now than normal. It's challenged. That's a great word. We love each other, but it's a really hard transition because we're not meeting in person. That's so real. Doing virtual bondings. So that's been really helpful. That's amazing. I love that. Planning events feels like a chore now. That's no joke. I want everyone to feel connected, and I feel like I'm failing. It's hard to lead right now. Yes, it is. Could be better. Quarantine has created cliques. Woof. Someone put that in the Q&A, because we should also talk about that. That is no joke. You feel like you're the only one trying to make it work. You feel distant. They're a bright spot. Your sisters want events, but then when you plan them, nobody comes, which is kind of crazy because that was also our challenge out of quarantine, but now it's just a whole other thing, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for saying all of those things. It's no joke. It's no joke, y'all. It is different now. And we're in this weird place where for a lot of our sisters, the sisterhood itself is their saving grace. It is their bright spot. It is their moment of joy in their week. And they're still feeling disconnected. And they're still feeling like it's not important. They don't feel like it's worth their time and money. They're regretting joining. They're wondering why they're here. They're wondering why they keep showing up to stuff. So it's like this weird half and half. And it feels, I don't know if any of you feel like this in the world of COVID-19, but it feels like we're powerless, right? Like, I can't invent the vaccine. Turns out that is not my expertise in the world. I can't make COVID go away. And I'm not an expert at throwing virtual events. I'm not an expert at virtual sisterhood. So it's really easy to feel completely powerless in this whole thing. Like, I know that it needs to be fixed, but I don't know what to do to fix it. And so the truth is that we need sisterhood. As far away as it feels, as disconnected as it feels, as much work as it feels like it is right now, we need it. And I think what I've come to learn, at least in my life, this will not be true for all of you, but I want it to be, is that sisterhood is actually a place where I can feel like I have some control. In a sea where I have no control, no control at all over if somebody's standing too close to me, or if somebody's choosing to wear a mask, or if the world is going to implode, or what's going to happen with the election. Like, I'm not in charge of the universe right now. But I'm finding that sisterhood can be a place where I can take control. Because in order to have sisterhood feel powerful and real and true right now, it's going to require that we make it what we want it to be, or make it as close to what we want it to be as possible. And that's not easy. I am not here to pretend that that is an easy thing, but I think it is what is required of us. And I think there are ways we can make it feel a little easier. A lot of times when we think about sisterhood, we think about these gigantic events, right? We think about the sisterhood events, we think about the philanthropy events, we think about mixers, socials, date parties, game days, service day, like those days when we're all together. And so then we try to recreate those days, try to recreate a virtual sisterhood retreat, try to recreate a sister social. And it just falls flat, it falls short. And that's because the events are only one part of what we're actually missing from sisterhood. I want you to think about accidental sisterhood for a moment. Think about the moments that happen on campus, in the house or suite, at Target, in the union, in the library, those moments where you would randomly bump into somebody, those moments where you would see somebody sitting alone in the union, sit down and then end up having a dope conversation with her. I want you to do me a favor in the chat. I want you to give, what do you miss? What are you missing right now? Outside of the big events, which I know we miss, but what about accidental or like those random moments of sisterhood? What are you missing about that? That's what I want you to put in the chat right now. Lots of hugging in here. Y'all, my extroverted heart misses hugs so much. I'm reading. Seeing my sisters in the library, laughing, hugging. I miss seeing my sisters in the library. Late night shenanigans in the kitchen. There's always a 3 a.m. moment in the kitchen. Sitting in the school Starbucks, seeing my sisters in person, the feeling of belonging, that's powerful. Hugs, having guests at the house, late night dinner after chapter, saying hi to everybody at chapter, hanging out in the hallway, sleeping and snuggling in the chapter room, Bachelorette Mondays, laying on my friends' floors watching TikToks, going to Cookout at 1 a.m. Listen, Cookout is a fast food restaurant for those of you that don't know. Carpooling events, laughing together late at night, hanging out in the chapter room, dinner drives, eating pizza, lots of food here. Y'all are my people. Deep talks, heart to heart, late night talks, the chapter room. Yeah. I don't ask you that question to be depressing. I promise. I promise the whole point of the session is not to be depressing. I think we have to acknowledge what we're missing to be able to move forward. I think we have to acknowledge that the fact that we can't casually see each other in the chapter room or at the Starbucks on campus is keeping us from sisterhood. It's not just that you can't have a philanthropy event or a sisterhood event. It's that you can't just go to Starbucks and sit down with your sisters and connect for a half hour in a way that felt totally casual and normal. You can't bump into each other in a Zoom room and be like, oh my God, Katie, I didn't know you were here. Let's sit down and chat. That's not a thing. Those casual moments are gone. And that is a barrier to connection right now. But I also don't think it's the only barrier. I think where we started our conversation is where the other barriers exist. I think what we are all currently experiencing in real life are proving to be barriers to sisterhood. I'm going to run through these I have 3 of them, and I want you to react in the chat and tell me if this feels right or real or true for you. So just pop off in the chat as I go. So some barriers that are keeping us from connecting virtually. Because I know some of you are like, I'm trying. My sisters say they want it, but nobody's trying, right? Number 1, no time or energy. Do any of y'all like just like in your world right now are at capacity? Like I don't have time or energy in my brain, in my heart, in my soul, in my spirit for more things. Do y'all get zoomed out? You have to be zoomed out. Like you just have got to be zoomed out. Like you can't get on another video call. You can't, you just like, I don't have any more time or energy to give. Some of your schedules have actually gotten crazier, even though you're not running around as much. This kind of schedule has been difficult to process, difficult to wrap your brains around, right? Or your just energy has been sucked from you. Like you just don't have the energy because you're Zooming all day, because the world is insane, because you're just at capacity. Like you don't have any more to give. And then I don't know if any of y'all get to this point. I get to this point where I could show up, right? Like I could get on a Zoom call with my friends, but I'm gonna show up real cranky. When I'm out of time or energy, like I can absolutely show up, but you're not gonna get the best version of Tina. You're gonna get an angsty, cranky, meh version of Tina, right? I don't have time. I don't have energy. That's number 1. Number 2, how many of you really don't want to feel needy? You have days or moments where you really could use a friend, but asking for one is really hard because you don't want to be the person that is a burden. You don't want to be the person that, how many of you have said the sentence, I don't want to put my stuff on your plate. I don't want to make your life complicated and hard, especially when you know everybody else is going through hard shit. So you're like, well, they're going through a lot, so I should probably just figure it out. And so you don't text or call or send a video because you're just like, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be a burden. So I just can't say anything. And then for some of you, when somebody does reach out to you, when you hear from somebody, even if you don't want to be the first person to reach out, you do hear from somebody and they ask you how you're doing, but you don't want to tell them the whole answer because it feels like too much, right? So then what do you say? I'm fine. Because the truth is, I'm feeling 10,000 things at one time, but I feel like if I tell you all 10,000 of those things, you're going to judge me, or I'm going to feel uncomfortable, or I'm just taking up too much of your time. So I'm not going to say any of that shit. I'm just going to say, I'm fine. Because that's easier and feels kinder to you. I don't want to feel needy. I don't want to be a burden. And I'm a little embarrassed at how not fine I am. So I'm just going to tell you I'm fine. Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. Tori just said, I feel like I can't complain, and I can't even read the whole message, but that's real too, right? Like you feel like you can't complain because like, oh, you're in too many Zoom meetings, but like there are people who have like lost family members, right? And your Zoom meeting fatigue is very real and true for you, but you feel like complaining about it is wrong, right? We do a lot of comparative suffering. Like she's suffering worse than I am, so I should probably just keep it to myself. And then we actually like shit on ourselves for feeling bad. Like we shouldn't be. So it's a whole negative self-talk cycle, right? That I don't deserve to complain. That's so real. Number 3, so the first one, don't have time or energy. Number 2, I don't like to feel needy. Number 3, which sort of encapsulates the other 2 all wrapped into one, is mental health. Y'all, I swear there's going to be books written about the mental health impacts of a global pandemic. Because even if you have never in your life struggled with mental health before, it's very likely that you are right now. Because this is so much. There is so much happening on the news and in your phones and every notification you get and the constant state of unknown and I don't know about y'all, but I have become way more like, there's an update from a news and like, I have to look at it right away because what happened now, what's going on, like what my anxiety is so prepared for everything to go wrong that I'm just like running on that high level of stress and anxiety, which definitely has a physical, mental, and emotional toll. But on top of that, the amount of dramatic change that we have been asked to accept in a very, very, very short period of time is madness. Humans are absolutely able to adapt. We are capable of this, but that does not mean that it is easy. And the fact that everything about your sorority experience, college experience, parenting experience, work experience is drastically different than it was just 7 months ago is like a mental health problem. Do any of you feel like you are in self-preservation mode? Like straight up survival mode. That's all I got. I am surviving. I am doing the best that I can, but it is like, I'm not trying to thrive. I'm not capable. I am surviving and trying to preserve myself, maybe my family. And that's all I got. Do you ever get to the point where you like literally just can't? All 43 unread text messages on my cell phone would tell you that I have frequently been in a I just can't place. I just like, I cannot respond to a text message today. I cannot post on Instagram today and pretend like my life's good. And if I do post on Instagram, it's just gonna be real dark. I can't go to class. I can't show up to this meeting. I just can't because I'm at capacity and my mental health is spinning. Every single one of those three things, not having the time or energy, not wanting to feel needy, and our mental health being in struggle mode, all of those are barriers to connection, to sisterhood. Because they keep us from doing the things that we would normally do, from reaching out the way we would normally reach out, from connecting. Because now connection takes effort. You could have had a really bad mental health day on campus and still sat in Starbucks next to your sister and felt better at the end of it. You might not have called her, you might not have reached out to her, but because she was randomly sitting in the chapter room waiting for you, you were able to connect. And that's not real anymore. That's not our current circumstances. And so it feels impossible. How do we get over these barriers when they are keeping us from sisterhood? The truth is, I don't know that we can just get over them. And I don't think that expecting people to just get over them is fair. We write a lot of stories in our brains about why people don't show up to things, about why people don't respond to text messages. Isn't it very likely that she didn't respond to your text message, not because she hates you, but because one of these things is happening to her life? Because she just can't today. Because she's got nothing left to give today. If we can remind ourselves, I see you in the chat. I am not the only one feeling these things, right? Y'all are feeling them too. Which means so are your sisters. They are feeling just as exhausted and overwhelmed and stretched too thin. They're feeling all the same things we are. Which is why we need sisterhood. Frankly, we all need therapy, in my opinion. We all need counseling. Everybody needs counseling. It's totally worth your time. Highly recommend. But because we don't live in a world where counseling is free for everybody, if you go to a college campus, it should be. You should go to a session. It's totally worth your time. I'm not saying that sisterhood is a substitute for therapy, because it is not. But I am saying that sisterhood, those moments of real powerful sisterhood, can sometimes feel stress relieving in a way that therapy can, because you feel less alone. You feel more connected. You feel understood and heard. We need sisterhood right now. So do we just leap over these barriers into the magical world of sisterhood? No. I think we acknowledge that we're missing accidental sisterhood. I think we acknowledge that we're all dealing with mental and emotional struggles that are keeping connection from being easy right now. And we try to adapt the way that we do sisterhood to meet our current needs. We just have to think about it differently. There's a few ways I think we can do that. Pause while I hydrate. This program is sponsored by Yeti. Number one, we need to relax some of our expectations. Okay. I'm not going to ask you to lower your expectations because I am frankly a person in the world who has high expectations and I'm not capable of lowering them. And I don't want you. I don't want you to lower the expectations for the humans in your lives, but I want you to relax our expectations. If people don't show up, it's not because they hate you. If people don't show up, it's not because they don't care about your sorority. It's because they're going through a lot right now. And we need to give people options and grace. Maybe instead of chapter being at the exact same time for everybody at the same day of the week, maybe we do 2 chapter meetings and people get to pick and choose. Maybe instead of sisterhood events being mandatory, 3 sisterhood meetups where you get on Zoom, see some faces, spend some time talking to your sisters, screenshot that shit and send it to somebody. Maybe that's how you get points. We need to relax expectations a little bit. Because while, yes, we all desperately need sisterhood, we are at capacity. And we have to be just a little bit more understanding and patient with where everybody's at. So that's step 1. Step number 2, we just need to try. The only way to fail at sisterhood is to not do sisterhood. The only way to do sisterhood wrong is to not do it at all. So trying is powerful. And when I say try, I mean set realistic goals and tiny little milestones for yourself. Because what we're doing here, ladies, we're like taking the idea of sisterhood and turning it into this new habit. It doesn't happen accidentally. It doesn't happen in large groups. So we now have to make it happen in our world. And we have to do it in slow increments, just like adding any other habit to your life. Just like deciding you want to eat more kale, or you'd like to take more steps every day, or you'd like to get better sleep. We have to build that habit slowly over time. And so that starts by setting some smaller benchmarks. For me, it is a once a week outreach. I have a Post-it note right here on my desk that says, have you made anybody's day better today? And so once a week, I try to reach out to a sister that I love and try to make her day better. The second part about that is that you have to do it in a way that feels comfortable for you. Maybe that's a TikTok. Maybe that's an Instagram meme. Maybe it's a really heartfelt text message that just tells her you've been thinking about her. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's an up the nostril FaceTime. Like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't matter what it is. But I have made myself the goal that once a week, I will reach out and just say, hi, thinking about you. To me, that feels achievable. It means I can do it in my own time and when I have more energy and time, when I don't feel so stretched so thin. I'm a big greeting card person. I'm really thinking about starting a line of greeting cards because they bring me so much joy. I'm a greeting card person. So for me, I can sit down and write 10 greeting cards and that fills my bucket. And then in a couple of days, it will fill all of those people's bucket. And so it's a small little, hi, I'm thinking about you. That's actually not that small. That actually makes a gigantic difference. So what if we could convince our sisters that everyone should just try once a week? Maybe you're not going to get a response to that text message. Maybe she's going to get the greeting card, smile, and then set it down and move on because it doesn't mean as much to her as it does to you. It doesn't matter. You tried. When you put sisterhood out into the world, it does good. Eventually, hopefully you'll get some back as well. But we just have to push some sisterhood. We have to try. And the other way to motivate ourselves through all of this is to remember that Sisterhood is not an event. Those events, those memories that we have of those large scale events feel so powerful to us because those were the moments, 3 a.m. on the kitchen floor, cuddling in the chapter room, going to the drive-thru at 11 o'clock. Like those are the moments that felt like sisterhood because those are the moments where we were celebrating our sisterhood. But sisterhood is not an event. Sisterhood is a feeling. It is a relationship. It's a connection. Sisterhood is support. It is love and laughter. It's feeling like you matter to some people and feeling like they matter to you. It's knowing that somebody's got your back, that somebody's going to show up for you. That's what sisterhood is. And all of those feelings I just listed, all of those feelings can and have been felt when you're not in the same room together. In fact, you could be in a room full of your sisters and not feel supported. But when one of them answers your phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning, it makes you feel like you matter. When somebody sends you a TikTok that they know is going to make you laugh, it makes you feel important. When somebody FaceTimes you just to go, what are you doing? It makes you feel like they care about you. That is sisterhood. Those text messages, phone calls, FaceTime, Instagrams, TikTok, like the group text that keeps you laughing every day, that is sisterhood. It's not what we used to think of as sisterhood, but it is. It always has been. And y'all have been having interactions like that with your sisters long before COVID came to town. There is not a single relationship in your life that doesn't have a virtual component. And your sisters have been supporting you, loving you, making you feel worthy for many of us for a really long time. We just don't think about those moments as sisterhood. But I think we need to. I think we deserve to. So in the chat, throw in a moment. Your sister called you just to say hi, or she answered your phone call late at night, or she sent you a greeting card in the mail or a care package, or she helped you with a homework assignment. Even for my newer members here, I'm willing to bet that somebody in your chapter or your pledge class has made you feel loved or special already. Maybe it's not every single day, but I'm willing to bet you felt supported in some capacity since you have started your time here. So throw some of those moments into the chat. When have you felt support, love, laughter, joy, connection, kindness from women in your world, either in COVID or pre-COVID? When have you felt some of these moments? When have you felt sisterhood? I'm reading. The late night Snapchat vlogs, that is no joke. One of my sisters missed a phone call at 4 a.m. and she called me back at 4:08. I love that. 11 p.m. want to get ice cream from a new member? Yes. There is not I don't know if there's a text message that would bring me more joy in my life than want to get ice cream? Like, yes. And you know how I know that's true? Because my husband said it to me at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and that's what we did. No shame. Oh my God, my sister's joined a club I started that I didn't have enough members for. That's amazing. Handmade cards, woke me up at 7 a.m. because she wanted to talk about virtual events. She came when I needed a favor, check in to see if I was okay. If I post anything about I'm struggling, somebody calls me, sent flowers to my house when my grandpa passed away. That's incredibly kind, and I'm sorry for your loss. This is amazing. Sisters text me back. I love this. Handmade brownies. Ooh, sold. Hyping our sisters' comment sections on Instagram. That's no joke. That is no joke. That's so real. Late phone calls. You want to do a Netflix party, trip to a haunted house. My sisters made me a handmade card. Hey, come outside. I brought you coffee. You are loved. Even if you don't have 17 stories to put in here right now, you are loved. And when we can start to accept that this is what sisterhood looks like for now, I think it can make us feel less alone. I think it can make us feel more loved. I think it can provide for us what sisterhood gives us, which is knowing that we're not alone in this world. Women need women. That has literally always been true. And I think in the madness of the world we live in right now, it is even more true now than ever. We need one another. And it used to look like going up to somebody and giving them a big hug, and now it looks like sending a text. It used to look like going to the drive-thru late at night, and now it looks like sending a Snapchat. And it's okay that it's not exactly what we want it to be. It's okay that this still kind of sucks because it's not what we want. And we're still allowed to feel loved. We're still allowed to feel special. We're still allowed to feel we are worthy of feeling like we have women out there who care about us, because you do. They might not text back right away. You might not be able to text back right away. But that doesn't mean sisterhood is gone. Sororities have been through way worse shit than this. Sisterhood is not gone. It is not over. It is just different. And it matters. If we can help our members see that we just have to do things a little differently, and that it's still totally possible to feel all the warm fuzzies that sisterhood makes us feel, then I think we have a shot at keeping sisterhood alive. I think we have a shot at keeping members, even though this whole semester feels so crazy. I think we have a shot of making sure that new members, even though they're having the weirdest new member experience of all time, still feel like they're important to us. It's not easy, but it matters. It is worth the work that it takes. So I hope a couple things. I hope that this gave you some direction, some things to do that you can start to work on, some suggestions you can make to your sisters. I hope this made you feel a little less alone and a little less crazy. Because I think sometimes when we feel overwhelmed or emotionally stretched, we think we're the only one. And I hope that seeing all of these people in the chat tell you that you are not the only one made you feel good, made you feel like you're not by yourself. Because that feeling of knowing that you're not alone is sisterhood. So that is my third hope, that you feel, even though you're talking to complete strangers, that you feel a little bit closer to sisterhood than you did when you got here. Those are my hopes for you. So I want to get to the Q&A. I want to tell you that if you want to share some of these pieces of this message with your sisters, this is a recorded session. You will get the link to the recording sometime this weekend. So you have it, use it. I can also do virtual sessions with your chapters. I've done a lot of them this semester, specifically to focus on sisterhood. So if I can come in and be helpful, you let us know. This is my email. You have my Instagram already. You can totally reach out to me on Instagram. That's also my email address. So if you want to talk, you can absolutely send me an email. And I just want you to know that in the fight, in the quest to keep sorority and sisterhood alive, you are not alone. I'm here to be helpful to you. Okay. If you have to go, please feel free to do so. Just know that you are important, and I'm really grateful that you were here. Y'all, your world is so crazy. I can't believe in all the Zoom sessions you still choose to come hang out with me. It's unbelievable. It is so wonderful. I'm so grateful, and I so hope that it was helpful. I'm going to dive into the Q&A. So if you have something that you haven't put in there yet, put it in there. If you need to go. But I'm going to start working through some of these things. Okay, let's talk questions. Okay. Cindy says, our actives are only allowed to be in contact via the internet. Nothing is in person. How can we help our actives bond with one another? It's a really great question. And some campuses are in a hybrid situation where they can see each other sometimes or in small groups, and some campuses are in situations like this. So it's a very real thing. It's super challenging, and we have to break all of our patterns to do it. But I think the big thing here that's helpful is to help them remember what sisterhood is. It's not the moment when they get to spend time together, it's the feeling the time together gives them. And we can give other people that feeling virtually. We can feel that feeling virtually. Here's how I know this is true. I meant to tell you the story 5 minutes ago, but so this is perfect. I have these two women in my world. They're sorority sisters of mine, and we're good friends. We see each other twice a year at a conference every December, and then we go on a trip every July together, just like a beach trip for a couple of days. And then we have this group text that's mostly just like memes and Lizzo quotes. Like, it's not a lot of substance. We don't text every day or even every week. Like, this was just our pattern, and we were in it for a really long time. And then we'd see each other in person those 2 times and get everybody caught up on life, right? And so then, like 2 weeks into quarantine, one of them texted the group chat and was like, "Do you guys want to FaceTime?" Have any of you experienced like a rediscovery of FaceTime? Like, it's been around for a minute, but all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that's FaceTime. Oh my God, that's FaceTime with my friends who live far away. Like, it's brand new technology. It's always been there. We just weren't doing it. So one of them asked if we could FaceTime, and we did. And we were on FaceTime for like 3 hours that day. We laughed and we cried, and it was wonderful. And we have had at least a 2-hour phone call once a week, every week since then. I have never felt closer to these women than I do right now. I know what's going on in their lives actively instead of learning about it 6 months after it happened. I feel so much support and love, and like they're in my corner. One of them lives in Utah. The other one lives in Georgia, and I live in Minnesota. And we will not take our trip in December. We didn't take our trip in July, and I feel closer to them now than I used to. Like 10 times closer. We can still make sisterhood happen, even if we can't be together. It takes a different kind of work. And so I think inviting them to getting your students or these women to get creative about how, right? Like, one of my friend groups, they're really big hangouts people or house party people. They love to like come into the house and do that. I've got some people that are totally Zoom. Have them find the way that feels most authentic to them. And it might not be the same for everybody, but I think it is possible to have powerful, badass friendships with women, even when you're not together. Maybe even more so now than it used to be. So that's what I would say. I hope that helps. It's a great question, Cindy. Ooh, Rebecca, we're diving in. Okay, Rebecca, I'm gonna read this out loud because this is important and a lot. For a long time, my chapter has really struggled with racial injustice, tokenism, implicit bias, and general exclusion of certain women of color women in our chapter. We have had good conversations about this, but have not really put action or accountability behind it. So many of our women have felt uncomfortable within our sisterhood because of this. And I was wondering if you had any tips on how we get this change going. That's no joke. Thank you for asking this question. This matters a great deal. I think what I am learning, because I am learning, right? In this department, I think many of us are learning in this department. I think what I am learning is walking the walk is 10 times harder than talking the talk. We can say that it matters to us. We can say that it's important to us, but then actually showing up and making it matter, making it, like you said, making the change happen is really complicated, is emotionally difficult. And I think a lot of the questions we get asked are, what does the work look like? Like, what is it? How do we know if we're doing the work as opposed to just talking about it? First of all, I do think talking about it is part of the work. I think it is a meaningful part of the work that is helpful and important and makes a difference. Because, especially for predominantly white sorority women, There are conversations that we have not been having, but should have been having for a long time. So I think there's benefit to that. I don't want it to feel like no progress is happening. If we're having conversations, that is progress. But especially for the members that don't feel like it is enough progress, I think the real key here is making it a part of our routine. We get in very deep traditions and routines in sorority world. We have chapter once a week. We have formal once a semester, right? Like we know these patterns. And so I think what we need to do is make racial justice, make social justice, make human decency a part of our patterns. So what would it look like if we added racial justice as a bullet point every chapter meeting? And we spent 10 or 15 minutes talking about what's going on in the news today, or what is keeping people in our chapter feeling safe, or are there events going on campus that make people feel like they can go learn some things? Like, how do we keep it top of the list? How do we keep it on the list? And then the other thing is allowing some programming around it continually, right? It's like, do you once a week have women come together to talk about what it means in our chapter? Do you start a book club? Not like y'all have more time to read more books, but like, do you start something like that where it becomes a tradition in our organization? Because everything else, including the bias that we have, is ingrained in us like a tradition. And so we need to rewrite that tradition by creating new ones. So how can we pattern it? How can we make it something that we do all the time? And then those conversations start to turn into more action. That's a really great question, Rebecca. I hope that helps. I really hope that helps. Okay, next question. Laura is asking, how would you imagine your sorority experience to have been adapted to the environment we live in? I know it's hard to imagine anything differently, but I would love to know. This is a great question. I think for me, when I think about how my sorority would have been impacted by this, or what it would have looked like in these circumstances, this is why I keep coming back to what is the purpose of sorority, right? Like, to miss the social experiences would have been a pain in the ass, right? It would have been very sad to miss some of these things that just become a part of sorority culture. But when I think about what a sorority is about, I think about sisterhood, and I think about women supporting women. I think about powerful relationships. I think about these two women in my life right now that I feel so deeply connected to. So like, how can we replicate those bonds? How can we make sure that we still care about each other more than anything? Whether that's helping each other adapt to online classes, whether that's, a lot of you said you're overwhelmed with the job and internship process. Can we still show up for each other? Like, so many parts of our normal life could be our normal life virtually. We just have to make the adaptation. And I think we can. I think so many pieces, the party aside, right? The recruitment aside, but if we can make formal recruitment or MGC growth and like bringing a line across, if we can make those experiences virtual, I don't think there's anything we can't build virtually. I'm not saying it's not the same, right? Sitting in a circle together doing a candle pass is not the same as doing it on Zoom. I know that, but that doesn't mean we still can't feel loved and supported. And so that's what I try to think about. It's like, how could I have made the phone calls, made the Zooms, made the FaceTimes, made the online activities center on the idea that women need women and that that's what sorority is about. I think that would have, for me as a leader in my chapter at this time, I think would have been the only thing to keep me pushing forward. And I think is a helpful way to think about it. I hope that answers your question, Laura. Oof, Robin, what a question. How can you be a leader in your sorority and objectively support women when there are sisters actively upholding white supremacy? Excellent question. Okay, Tina, think before you speak. I believe that women need women. I believe that women deserve kindness, love, and respect from one another. It is the word objectively that I think gets us into trouble. I want you to love that woman and treat her with kindness and respect, even if she's different from you, even if she comes from a different place than you, even if she believes in things that you don't believe. I think she still, as a woman in the world, deserves your love and respect. And I don't believe that sisterhood is allowing someone to be a white supremacist. I don't believe that she still deserves your love and respect if she is a terrible person, if she is unkind or actively racist. So it's the objectivity part that gets us complicated. And so when it comes to being a leader in your organization, I think we need to bring it back to the values. Right? So like, let's talk about politics. I know some of these questions are about politics. But like, you're going to have sisters who believe differently than you do politically. Believe it or not, that used to not be a big deal. Because being a Republican or a Democrat didn't used to be this like gigantic label that changed everything about the way people saw you, right? It was just a part of your identity, not your whole identity. Politics has become a whole other place these days. But like hating her because she votes a certain way or is a part of a certain party doesn't make sense, isn't helpful. And that is where we can love women who are different from us without just blindly loving white supremacists, blindly supporting white supremacists. If we take it back to our values, every organization has different values, but every organization has very similar values at the same time. I'm willing to bet that love is a value of most of our organizations. Yeah? Okay, well, love would mean I'm supposed to love my sister. But doesn't love also mean that I'm supposed to love humans and humanity? If I believe that I'm supposed to love my sister and my sister's Black, then doesn't that mean I believe Black Lives Matter? And if she over there doesn't believe Black Lives Matter, doesn't that mean that she's not adhering to my values, our values? And then we have to have a conversation about holding somebody accountable. Then we have to have a conversation about being a leader of an organization that is a values-based organization sometimes means holding people accountable to a value. We recruited people. We're supposed to be people that value the same things. And if somebody is actively upholding white supremacy, do they value the same things your chapter does? And if not, then does that warrant a conversation? I don't think our organizations are at a point where we can bring each other to standards for being white supremacists. And you all might disagree with me on this, but I hope that someday we get there. I really do. I hope that someday that we can have conversations during the recruitment process about race so that we don't recruit people into our chapter that aren't going to love all of our sisters equally based on the color of their skin. So it's really hard, Robin, it's really hard. But I think checking your values is a place to start to find peace. I hope that that's helpful. We just talked about elections a little bit. Yes. Yes. Okay, Marissa, this is so real. Sisters are literally going at each other on social media because of the election. It looks very bad in our chapter and is so tense. Sisters are calling each other racist for supporting Trump, and others portray racism as political, and we're going on this ongoing argument. I have literally done sessions for chapters this semester specifically about this because on social media, they are going at it. And that doesn't help sisterhood. It obviously doesn't help the chapter image, and it's not a productive way to have these conversations. So this is no joke. It's really powerful and hard and complicated. I want to tell you that there's a solution to this problem. I don't know that there is. In any other part of sisterly arguments, I feel like I could find an answer for you. But politics in this country right now are so complicated. They are so emotionally charged. And we as a country are looking at people very close-mindedly across the entire political spectrum. If you wear this one hat, I have made all of the decisions about who you are in the world. if you put this sticker up on your laptop, I have made every decision I need to make about you, right? Like it's become this like, that's your only identifier. And in a world that is that divided and that divisive, so claiming that we should be sisters through that and above that is really hard, okay? So from a logistical standpoint, I know some chapters have said you need to keep politics off your page or you need to make your page private. Like our chapter is looking like trash right now. And if you want to be politically active on your Instagram account or your social media account, then you need to do it about voting, not about political candidates, because then our chapter gets the reputation of the Republican or the liberal or the whatever, right? I think that women, I think we can use our political energy. If you've got women that are like politically charged in your chapter, I think that is dope. But then let's use our energy to get other women to vote. Let's use that political energy to whatever you believe, bring it to the ballot box. Whatever you believe is valid, bring it to the ballot box. Let's vote, right? So I think that's one way to channel it. And if you need to curb some of the drama happening on social media, I think that is a way that you can do that. The other thing is that we need to take the petty arguments off of social media, and we need to try to recreate a culture where we can talk to each other. So I have a session about empathy. So if I can help y'all bring the chapter together and I can just come during a chapter meeting virtually and talk to y'all about that. But like, how do we engage in conversations with people who are different from us? How do we try to understand people who are different than us? I think you should encourage your chapter that if you've got a problem with Katie and what she posts on social media, don't write it on her Instagram account. Don't post it in the group meet. You got to go directly to Katie. And if you can't, then you best keep it to yourself. If you can't call her out, not publicly, kindly and privately, if you can't say, hey, Katie, what you post on social media makes me really uncomfortable, but I want to talk to you about it. That is sisterhood. You don't have to like everything everybody else says. You don't have to agree about everything. You can have very different beliefs and still hear each other out. It just requires patience and kindness. And we got to take it off public faces. So I think encouraging your members to have those conversations offline and not to screenshot those messages and then send them out, because that's not okay, then that's what I would tell you to do. And if you feel a little overwhelmed by doing that yourself, email me and we'll talk, okay? It's a great question, Marissa. Oh, Caroline, I don't have an answer for you, but this is a great question. If anybody here has it, they can put the answers in the chat. Caroline says, spring 2022 will be 100 years of my chapter on campus, and we need to save our house. And they want Caroline to be a part of that leadership team. So anybody have any good fundraisers for house funds or ways to celebrate 100 years on campus? Toss those in the chat. It's a great question. Rachel says, my chapter has been struggling with people coming to events. It's always the same few people that do everything. What can we do to make sisters want to show up or to go to events? Is there something we should change? It's a great question, Rachel. I'm assuming we're talking about virtual events. If we're not, then this might not be as helpful. But if we're talking about virtual events, then I think going back to the drawing board about our expectations is smart. Instead of having a big event for the whole chapter, what if it looked like we asked everybody to have 3 sisterhood moments this week and touch base with 3 different women who aren't in your pledge class and who aren't in your family tree, right? To like get them to reach out across some of the cliques. I think that could be a really good place to start, is shifting the way that we think about events. Because events aren't going to feel the same, and they're going to be, like we said, they have all the same barriers to sisterhood right now as we do. And so can we make it more accessible? That's what I would tell you to start with. Francie, any advice for women who were already struggling, feeling sisterhood within their chapter? That's a really good question. I think the answer is, this is not an easy answer, but I think the answer is that I think you can start friendships in COVID times. It's just harder. But like, if you were already starting to feel disconnected, can you think of somebody else who might be, or can you think of a sister in your chapter who cares about you or about that and reach out. Maybe even reaching out to your chapter president, your new member coordinator, your sisterhood chair, and saying, I'm feeling a little disconnected. I'd love to connect to somebody. Is there anybody else who doesn't have a big or who is not really connected to the chapter this semester that I could reach out to and try to start something new? It is not easy. But I think what we learned during formal recruitment this fall is that we can start new relationships on the internet. It is possible. And we can actually start them in a way that is powerful and vulnerable and emotional. It requires that you put yourself out there. It requires that you do the work. That's the hard part. But I think that's where I'd start. How can I engage our new members whose experience was cut short in the spring to bond with our older sisters? That's a great question. I'm assuming people have big and littles, but at this point, they're either definitely connected or not at all connected. And so I would get sisters, older sisters, to volunteer or sign up to engage new members. And not the ones in their family tree and not the ones that they share, but like I've worked with a chapter that started Sisterhood Circles. So like one of their sisters who's a engineering major, got all the sisters, regardless of what family tree they're in, regardless of what pledge class they're in, together on a Zoom call just to talk about being engineering students and to talk about professors and to talk about how these men in our classes never listen to us and like just talk about that. And then the nursing majors had their own sisterhood circle and they talked about how weird it is to take nursing classes virtually. So like, what are some other ways we can group up chapter sisters? We do it normally. We have so many traditions, but like, let's shake shit up. Do you have 7 chapter sisters who all freaking love Harry Potter? Put them in a sisterhood circle, right? Like, how can we create opportunities for the new members to engage with different humans, but still make them feel connected to the chapter? And I think some of those topical groupings will be helpful. Sisters who love to run, right? Like if you love to run, you could do a virtual running club, right? That's cool. Like there's so many ways that we can engage across. We just have to get creative because our traditional stuff isn't the same anymore. So I hope that helps. I'm reading. How can we get sisters not living in the house to go to the house for 2 meals a day that are included in their dues? That's a great question, and it's complicated right now because of COVID. If they don't want to come over because of health concerns, then it's hard to argue with that, right? It's hard to complain about that. If there's another barrier to them being there, then I think we need to learn that. So what I would do is send out a 1-question survey to all of the women not living in and say, you're paying $3,000, whatever, for meals at the house. Are you using them? And if not, what's keeping you from using them? And just collect anonymous responses. And if the answer is COVID, well, then we know that that's the answer. And there's not a whole lot we can do about that right now. If the answer is not COVID, then we can start to solve some of those other problems, right? Maybe her schedule's too busy, whatever. And then we can start to say, okay, well, what if we shift Monday's lunchtime or whatever, right? We can start to get creative. So we have to figure out what the barrier is first. And if it's COVID, then I think we just have to accept that it's COVID and let people make the decisions that feel safest for them right now, even though that's frustrating. It's a good question. Megan, how do we emphasize kindness and tolerance or differing viewpoints during this tumultuous time? How can we do that all the time? Can we do that all the time? I'm here for this. Great question. I think you just need to continually remind your sisters that just because she believes something different than you doesn't mean she's a bad person, and that she is still your sister. She is still your sister. She is still a woman in the world who deserves to be respected. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it, but she's a woman in the world that deserves respect. And if something crosses a barrier, if something crosses a line for you, for instance, this will not be a shock to you. I'm a liberal person, okay? I can have respect and love in my heart for somebody who is conservative. When we cross over into darker places, right? When we not even cross over, when we shift paradigms, when we're in the liberal conservative paradigm, I think I can understand a lot of things. When we shift into a I'm a racist paradigm, that I cannot do, right? I can't do that. I'm not here for that. That is a barrier for me. That is a boundary for me that I can't do. If somebody is blatantly comfortably racist, then like, can't do that. But somebody who's conservative is not necessarily somebody who's racist, right? So like, we just have to figure out what our barriers are. And as long as she is a good person who values the same thing you value, then she's allowed to think differently than you. And I think it will help us all become better, because someday they're going to work in an office with a whole bunch of people who believe different things than they do, and they're not going to be able to pop off on Instagram about it. So also remind them that this is job training. I hope that helps. Oh, Robin, how nice is this? Thank you. Robin wants to know how my pregnancy is going and says I'm going to be a good mom. So thank you. That makes my day. Pregnancy is going well. Pregnancy and COVID is stressful. And I've been having some back pain in the last 2 weeks, which has been not fun at all. But turns out having a chiropractor is totally worth your time. If you can do that in your life, especially as a pregnant person, I highly recommend. But we're doing very well. Everything is very healthy. And the baby's been kicking me this whole time. So that's a really special feeling. And we're just really grateful. So thanks for asking. Last question I have. There are only 4 of us active and it is still hard to bond. What can I do to change that? That's a great question, Chloe. 2 things come to mind. Well, first of all, that's really hard. So it's a really great question. 2 things. One, like literally if you Google Zoom team builders, the number of stupid ass silly activities that you can do on Zoom is hilarious. People have come up with so many ways to bring people together. And like, I'm on a team this summer that we had to do all of our meetings virtually. And so every meeting we did a little team builder and we just got to know each other on a more human level. Like I learned one person loves to ski. I didn't know he liked to have fun in his life until we learned that. This one woman was like the most quiet, introverted person I've ever met in my life. And I learned during those team builders that her hobby is belly dancing. How dope is that? One day we played show and tell, which is so dumb, but it was like, bring something in your house that defines who you are and something in your house that proves that you're bad at adulting. So I brought a box of macaroni and cheese and the plant that's sitting in my windowsill that I killed 2 months ago. Like everybody brought silly things and we just laughed. So like there are ways to connect and build relationships that don't feel like, how are you? Fine. How was your test? Good. Like sometimes we got to shake shit up. And are those activities cheesy? Yes. Is cheese delicious? Yes. So do some Googling and see if there's some ways you can shake up some of the culture of the 4 of you. And the other thing I'd say is that try to spend time together in different pairs. So if it's person A, B, C, and D, have B and D eat lunch together virtually, have A and D, right? Like trying to mix that up because we'll find connections in individual people. Sometimes we just have to spend individual time with them to do that. So that's what I would say. And I hope that that's helpful. Yes, we have a name picked out for the baby, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a surprise. We're not telling anybody. But if you follow me on social media, you'll find out in early January, the baby. Allie, I don't know anything about this question you just asked, but I appreciate you asking it. I have no idea how to answer your question about the 8-month-old child. Maybe I need to do some reading before I become officially a mom. So those are all the questions that I have. I know a lot of people put some answers in the chat, so I hope you got some good things out of it. And we're right at 8:15, so this is the perfect time. If I didn't get to answer your question, I'm sorry, but I'm so hopeful that tonight was helpful. I hope that you feel loved because you are. I hope that you feel like you're important because you are. And I hope that you feel less alone in the world. And like there's some things you can do when you leave here to try to improve the sisterhood feelings that you're having. Every single one of you, every single woman in the world deserves sisterhood. You deserve sisterhood. We just have to go out and make it. Thank you for coming. I care about you all so much. If you need anything, email me, Instagram me, whatever you need. I'm very grateful. Thanks for being here tonight, everybody. I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Go eat. Go to cookout if that's what you're doing. I'm going to go eat the dinner my husband's making for me right now because he's the best. And I'm really grateful for y'all. Thanks for coming tonight. Bye.